Ladies and gentlemen, this is Scary Bad Reviews, and this is my intro.
Oh, that's hot. That's hot.
Alrighty, so it is Wednesday, October 9th. We are on to our second day of the week of the zombie. We are kind of looking at a different side of the genre than we were yesterday. Yesterday we kind of covered a more serious tone with it, with a lot of context outside of it, a lot of commentary outside of it. What we are looking at today is the exact opposite of that. This is just really someone who, this is just really horror filmmakers just going out there and just having a blast. And that's Return of the Living Dead from 1985. This movie has no connection to Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, any of those. It is a standalone from those. This movie, I have seen bits and pieces of it. I had seen things from it. I had never sat down and actually watched it all the way through. And if anyone were to ask me to kind of point to any one thing and describe 80s B horror or 80s like goofy, campy horror, I'm going to point directly to this movie. I mean, it has everything. Oh, excuse me. Holy shit. It has everything that you look for on a checklist for campiness. I mean, great special effects, a goofy synthwave soundtrack, terrible acting at some parts, weird choppy dialogue, over-the-top characters. The first 25 minutes of the movie include punk kids with chains across different piercings and leather and mohawks and everything. You get nuclear waste from a military group. You get a zombie. You get the killing of a zombie, and you get a full scene of full nudity scene. I mean, the girl is really just completely naked. So it's like when you look at it and you look at things that make horror movies campy, or they make them like scream 80s nostalgia, this movie has it all. The movie, parts of it are very well made and parts of it are actually incredible, and of course parts of it are not. The acting in the movie is of course subpar. The dialogue, you can tell that people didn't, that wasn't going to be the mainstay within the movie. There's a couple good lines here or there. There's a couple of cool characters within it. The chemistry between the actors comes and goes. There are certain characters within the movie that do really well together. Like, I actually found myself enjoying any interaction between Spider and Bert. Spider being one of the members of the punk gang of kids that gets caught up in all this, and Bert being the one who works at the medical facility where the zombie virus kind of outbreaks, I guess is what you would say. Overall with this movie, I find it difficult to rate because you have to rate it on a certain scale. If you look at it purely from a critical perspective of like, okay, is it a well-made movie? Is this good? Is that good? Does it bring things outside? It's not going to be very good. But when you look at it in the context that it should be, I do think that it's well made. I give the movie a 5.5 out of 10. I think the special effects within the movie, the prosthetics that they use with zombies, and how unique each zombie looks compared to others is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, you get a slime acid zombie earlier on in the movie, and then later on as well, that they refer to as Tar Man. That is one of the craziest looking things I've ever seen. It's such a beautiful effect. They really went over the top with it, and it just looks so awesome. I mean, it looks scary on the screen, but at the same time, there's a goofiness to it. There's a couple other zombies throughout it that are kind of cool. Seeing the prosthetics become applied and everything to the two characters, Frank and Freddy, who slowly become zombies, is really cool. When Freddy finally turns and they attack him with the nitric acid and he has the burnt over eyes, prosthetic that they put over his eyes to be these bumps and just nastiness and burns and everything is very well done. Also, there is I guess it probably would be a puppet or an animatronic that they use for, there is a female zombie that's cut in half, and so they tie down the top half of it to interrogate her. That's one key detail that I think is different in this one than in a lot of movies, and that the zombies are like cognizant of what's happening. Like they still have a mind, they still have functioning thoughts, and are able to still communicate. We see it multiple times that there are certain zombies within the trap that they lay. So, to explain this slightly better, let me actually go through the plot like I usually do. I'm all out of sorts here trying to talk about this movie. Within it, you have a group of punk kids who are, of course, just enjoying a night on the town. They end up going to a graveyard because one of their friends works nearby in a chemical plant. It's a medical facility that also holds chemicals within it. They release an unknown chemical that they have received from the military by accident. That kind of reanimates a dead cadaver body that they have within that lab. They learn that it reanimates dead objects, but when they burn the cadaver to try to kill it, its ashes are spread within the clouds, and then it begins to rain. So all of the dead within the cemetery nearby start to rise. And the zombies themselves that start to rise, they set up this kind of trap so that anybody who tries to come into the cemetery who's pulling directly up to the door of the mortuary, they can just cave in on them and really just take them out and eat them and whatever they need to do. But each time they do that, say there's a scene where paramedics come and they get attacked by these zombies, and the zombies are actually functioning enough to get on the intercom within the paramedics car and say, "Send backup." And then when backup shows up, they attack them, and then they do the same thing over again. The zombies continually just override anything that comes in to kind of deal with the problem. These are not classic zombies. They cannot be taken out by destruction of the brain or high damage. They have to be burned to a crisp. They have to be burned down to ashes for them to stop trying to eat. The end result of this is that they finally, Bert, Spider, Tina, and two other of the characters get caught back in the medical building, and they find that the tank of chemicals actually has a number on the side of it to call if anything goes wrong. They end up making that call and ends up linking them to a military general, who ends up ordering a ordnance strike on Louisville, Kentucky, where everything has been contaminated, as they saw no other way to destroy the virus or whatever it is. So we kind of see the destruction of a portion of the town. Although it is kind of cool at the end of it, we see the rain come back and we see a new zombie pop out that's pure skeleton because all the skin of it has been burnt off. The movie is incredibly... I know it sounds weird that I use this word quite often with horror movies because a lot of them people wouldn't necessarily describe them that way. But this movie is incredibly fun. It's really silly. It never takes itself seriously. I really do recommend this, especially for a Halloween watch. I think it really sets that mood of like combination of fun and, silliness and goofiness that we can associate with Halloween while also having a lot of horror aspects still within it. There's a couple of good scenes within the movie that that really would hold up against other zombie movies. When Tina and Ernie are locked up in the attic of the mortuary, there is a good scene where Freddy is trying to get up there to get to Tina, and he just keeps talking to her about like all these things that she should have done to help him. We learn within the movie that the zombies are trying to eat brains because brains are the only things that will relieve them of the pain of being dead. So that was kind of cool also to hear a zombie's perspective from within the movie. Like I said, this movie's a 5.5. It is it's a good watch. I really do recommend a lot of people watch it, especially for Halloween, and especially if you're a horror fan. I think this really sums up an not necessarily an underground, but kind of an underlayer of the 80s. Really kind of establishes a certain tone with zombie movies. the special effects in it, I cannot stress enough that they're awesome. There isn't a bad special effect. All of the zombies look great. It's all prosthetics, which is incredible. The Tar Man looks really good. I mean, I cannot get over the Tar Man himself. I mean, it's just sloppy and disgusting, and it really kind of sets the early kind of. There's a quarter of the movie that he's involved in heavily, and then he's back in the back last like 20 minutes of it. And I cannot stress enough how much he just calls for attention whenever he's around. I mean, he almost feels like a Scooby-Doo villain, but to the best way possible to describe it. I mean, he just looks so just good. I mean, they really went up and over with his design and his execution of his look. So yeah, it's a 5.5. I recommend it especially to anybody who enjoys horror movies. Also, I recommend it as a great Halloween watch to really get you into the spirit of everything, and it's a lot of fun to sit down and watch.
Okay.
So that is it for day 2 of Week of the Zombie. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to kind of scoot ahead in the years. I feel kind of bad because there is going to be a little bit of gap in between the movies that we're covering. The next thing that I'm going to be looking at is a comedy movie. It's a zombie comedy movie from the early 2000s called Shaun of the Dead. I'm sure a lot of people who listen have heard of it before. It's a Simon Pegg movie. I absolutely love it. I'm going to be really happy to be able to cover it in this kind of a setting. Just showing zombies in another comedic light. It's not like Return of the Living Dead where it's still a horror-centric idea. This is really full-fledged dark comedy that uses horror influence in it. I'm very happy that I'm going to be able to cover it, and it shows another level in the evolution and the progress of zombies in Hollywood. As always, if you enjoyed my content, please like and subscribe. If you have any ideas for the next coming weeks, the rest of these next 7 days is going to be, week of the zombie, and then right after that we're going into week of the werewolf. So if you have ideas for these, please let me know, and thank you for listening.